Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new episode of Tech Pizza, the podcast, video series, and newsletter where we try to make tech like pizza, easy to understand, democratic, and fun. I'm shooting this episode from Mallorca. I'm here for a little workation where I work during the day, but also went to amazing restaurants during the night and also explored some nice beaches during the weekend. This week, we're going to focus mostly on how tech is going to impact the abortion ban that is happening in the United States. That's going to be the main news of the week. We're going to try to understand what's happening and how you can take steps to try to preserve your data. But we're also going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to talk about some AI news related to ethics, as well as some blockchain news, with Solana releasing a new smartphone specifically designed for the blockchain, and Snoop Dogg and Eminem releasing a new song starring their Bored Apes. That said, let's get started. With the overturn of Roe vs. Wade, abortion may become illegal in 26 states in the United States of America. In this video, I want to try to explain how tech, especially cycle tracking apps, can potentially make this even worse. And in the end, I'm going to try to give you some practical tips to try to preserve your data, so make sure you stick until the end of the video. Millions of women use cycle tracking apps, and these apps, to work correctly, they need you to log a lot of different information: when you're on your cycle, when you had sex, etc., etc. Why is this a problem? Well, first of all, there are states like Texas where people can report other people to authorities if they had abortion, or even if they were assisting other people in trying to get an abortion. On top of that, you have to think that companies often have to share data with the government if it's in the context of an investigation. This happens for a lot of different crimes, from drug dealing to human trafficking, etc., etc., and it has been used already in this specific context. In 2018, in Mississippi, a woman was under investigation for having killed her newborn, and they used her browsing history to prove that she was looking for different ways to try to provoke a miscarriage. So there's a total possible scenario in which a woman wants to get an abortion in a state that has just made it illegal, and another person wants the government to prosecute her, reports that woman to the government, and the government asks any of these cycle tracking apps for data about her cycle so that they can prove that she was actually getting an abortion. And that's messed up. So now let's talk about the market of cycle tracking apps. A lot of them already were in trouble for using data in a little bit of sketchy ways. An example is Flow, an app that has 47% of the market share in the United States. And last year, this app already had a fine from the FTC because they were sharing data with Facebook to advertise to women. So, for instance, if an advertiser wanted to put an ad in front of women that were on their period, the app will help these advertisers do that by sharing data with Facebook, which is, again, messed up. So obviously now women want to try to switch to more privacy-preserving apps, but it's not that easy. Let me give you an example. There's an app called Stardust that has a small women-led team. They had just 80,000 users before this weekend, and then their founder made a video on TikTok in which she was saying that they were going to switch to fully encrypting user data. In just one weekend, they went from 80 to 400,000 users. But TechCrunch made an analysis on this app, and they found out that this app is already sharing the phone number of their users to third-party services for analytics purposes. And that means that it's even harder for you to take control over where your data goes. So how can you make your data safe? Let's talk about this. Consumer Reports says that you have to evaluate apps on three things. The first one is if the app stores data locally. What does it mean? A lot of apps store data on the cloud, and if the data is on the cloud, it means that the company can read that data. Some apps instead store the data on your device, which means that they don't know anything about it. That could be a problem for you, though, if you change phone. In that case, it's really hard for portability. You're going to lose all the data that you logged in the past. The second thing you should look at is if these apps use third-party trackers. A lot of these apps share data with different companies for analytics or for marketing, and that further dilutes the control you have of the data. And the third thing is if these apps share transparency reports. Consumer Reports scored a bunch of apps along these three different dimensions, and these are the results that you can check out. But I want to add something more. There's another option that is called end-to-end encryption. What does it mean? That's the best compromise between functionality and safety. It means that your data gets sent to the cloud encrypted, which means that the company that gets this data into the cloud cannot read it. The data gets decrypted when it gets on your phone, so only you can read it. The problem is, it's not easy to implement, because as soon as you make a mistake in the code, then basically people can break that encryption. And that's something that I'm a little bit skeptical about when you see small teams like Stardust that say that they're going to implement this very complex technology. So, an option that you can have is to go with the first party trackers of companies like Apple, for instance. They use end to end encryption and have big teams that you can potentially trust more for their technical knowledge. Another option that you have is, let's remember that you can do this also with pen and paper. I know it's less comfortable, but you can potentially use just a calendar and track when you have your period. I hope this video helped you understand the risks and the trade-offs better, and now please share it with somebody who may need it. This week there were a bunch of news related to AI ethics, and I want to talk about three different things and trying to find a fil de rouge that connects all of them. Number one, Instagram is gonna use AI to understand your age and verify your account. You know when you subscribe to a service and it tells you verify that you are more than 18, or in case of Instagram, more than 13? Well, a lot of people now, they have two options. Either they send an ID, which means that they're sharing a lot of information with Facebook, or they just click yes, which is not really safe, right? So Instagram partnered with an app called Yoti. Here's how it works. You send a video selfie of yourself, and Yoti uses AI to estimate your age. Then tells to Facebook either yes, this person is more than 13 or 18, whatever you need to use the app, or no, this person is not. And then the picture gets deleted. Here's some reason why it's cool and some reasons why it's not cool. It's cool because it preserves your privacy more than sharing an ID, because all you're sharing is your age and nothing else. And it's also safer and more accurate than just the checkbox that everybody clicks on. But it's also uncool because how are we sure that this service is accurate? How are we sure that it's accurate across all different ethnicities and all different genders? That could potentially be a problem. Second news, Microsoft discontinued their emotional AI tools. What does it mean? Microsoft was selling some AI algorithms that were able to identify emotions in different people, and they've been selling this for years. But they found out that these tools were not accurate across all different ethnicities. So, for instance, they were more accurate for white people, obviously, than for black people. They were more accurate for men, obviously, than for women. So, really classic shitty biases. And right now they stopped selling this, which is amazing, but it also makes you think about how these companies think. They first started selling something for years, and then they realized later on that, hey, this thing is not accurate, let's take it off, which is really not great. And I hope that companies are gonna start flipping the way that they treat these problems, first understanding whether it works for everybody, and then putting them on sale. Third AI-related news. Amazon announced a new service for Alexa that is gonna be able to replicate the voice of your dead relatives. They showcased a demo where somebody says, hey Alexa, can you please read this story with the voice of my grandma? And Alexa just starts doing that. Now, obviously, you can see why people may want to use this. People may be suffering for the loss of a loved one, and then they decide to use this to feel comfort. There are a few problems though. We talked about on my newsletter Tech Pizza, go check it out on tech.pizza, that there was a Google engineer who thought that their Google's AI became sentient. So if an AI tool looks and acts like a human being, people may be confused and may think that they're actually talking to a human. What happens when this technology gets applied to mimic our dead loved ones? I still can't foresee how we're going to be able to deal with this. From a psychological point of view, this may mess us up a lot. What do you think? Do you think this could be a cool application? Would you use it? Or you're more afraid of the potential psychological trauma and damage that confusing a little robot for your dead relatives can bring to your psyche? Let me know in the comments. Eminem and Snoop Dogg made a new song that obviously is about weed. But the interesting thing is they also released a pretty cool video that features their bored apes. So they're NFTs that they bought, you know, the ones with the apes with the weird faces and stuff. The song was launched for NFT.NYC, which was a global NFT conference happening in New York City. And why is this important? I think it's important because it pushes NFTs into pop culture. So there's a lot of different value proposition for NFTs that people argue about. The fact that they're decentralized, that you can trade them without intermediaries, etc., etc., etc. But it seems to me that the main feature of NFTs today is that they're cool, is that the people think they're fun. And this kind of news pushes them NFTs in that direction. Is that good or bad? I wouldn't say it's necessarily good or bad, but it's important that we know about it so that when we talk about NFTs, we don't get confused by the technology and the fact that it's decentralized, whatever. NFTs have value Today, because they're cool, because Eminem and Snoop Dogg make songs about them. And that's about it. And it's fine. As far as you know it, though. You can now buy a crypto phone. Let's try to understand what it means. There's a blockchain platform called Solana, and they just released a new phone called Saga. Why? Well, crypto today is not very user-friendly. It's a little bit complicated to use. You need to know a lot of things about wallets, encryption. It's kind of complex. And a lot of people today are mobile first. So they want to use their mobile phone to do anything. And that's why Solana, to try to boost adoption of their crypto, made this new phone. Here's some of the features you have. 1. Solana Pay, which is going to allow you to use your phone to pay using cryptocurrency, exactly like you do today with Apple Pay. 2. They're going to have the dApps store, where dApps stand for decentralized apps. So all these new blockchain apps that you can use. Number 3 is going to work as a wallet for your crypto. And number 4 is also going to allow developers to use the Solana mobile stack, which is a bunch of different software tools to allow developers to build apps for their phones. I think this is very interesting because if it works, that means that it's going to make crypto much more user-friendly and potentially boost adoptions. But there's a big problem. You need to make people use this phone. And so you're competing with Apple, you're competing with Google, you're competing with companies that are very big and very good at user experience. So the Solana team really needs to make a good job. Let's see how this evolves. Thank you for watching this episode of Tech Pizza. Remember that Tech Pizza is also a newsletter. So if you go on tech.pizza and you leave me your email, you're gonna receive every week all this news in written form with links to the podcast and to the video. So if you haven't done it yet, go there and subscribe and tell your friends so that more and more people can be up to date on all these amazing things happening in the world of technology. I'll see you again next week. Ciao.